I'm super, super excited to have these two here. It's something that we've been talking about for a little while, Pattern, bringing in some awesome, cool, random people, and these guys are it.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks so much for having us here. It's really an honor to be here to hang out with you guys.
We've had a wonderful day.
It's been amazing.
The similarities between Indianapolis and Raleigh are uncanny. And Helena, you've been an amazing tour guide. Thank you.
Well, it's pretty easy. I took him to Milk Tooth for lunch, and I think we're going to go to Black Market afterwards. And we're also heading to Reed's, so not enough time. There's so much more to show you guys.
We'll come back to the opening of the makerspace.
Awesome.
Thank you so much to everyone who made this possible. We're really, really grateful. Cool. Shall we?
Yeah, so we have, obviously we showed a little bit of what we do in the video, but we have some slides that we'll go through maybe for like 10 minutes or so. And then like Helena was saying, I think we'll kind of have a conversation about some things, but
I'll throw out some questions.
we really want to
Although I think that there's going to be lots of people here who will have lots of questions for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Want to open up the conversation to anything that could help obviously like designing things is one big part that I think a lot of people focus on, but then there's so many other things to to making a successful business, to creating things, delivering on time, to financing, to accounting, to whatever. Like any question you have, we're wide open to. We started this business in our apartment in Raleigh. We lived in the smallest, shittiest apartment in Raleigh.
It's true.
With no money. Our combined net worth in 2007 was negative $10,000
That's
or
not
something.
true. It was $11,000.
No, our combined income, our combined net worth was like negative $10,000.
Okay, fair enough.
So any of that is fair game, and I think all of that is really important to building something that is successful and viable. I think we all, not we all, but a lot of people are really interested and can make some things. But then how do you make some things into making a life and making a living? And I think that's kind of the conversation that we are totally open to having. And any of that is fair game. So we started in 2007 in our apartment, no money. We started making jeans. It was just a project. Sarah and I both were really into making different things. Sarah was in design school. I was in business school. I was into making furniture and photography. I got into cooking. It got me into winemaking. I made wine for 4 or 5 years. I love these elements of small production, of something that was representative of a place, something that was handmade, with attention to quality. A lot of those ideas, that slow foods, those kind of mentality, we applied to clothing and denim. And in North Carolina, there is a lot of history there. There is a lot of heritage. There's not a whole lot of existing industry there in any way. There's one mill. Probably the best and most well-known mill is Cone Mills, and they've been there since 1905. So luckily we did have them to kind of turn to. The last Levi's factory in the United States was in North Carolina, way up in the mountains. And so I spent a lot of time up there with the 2 mechanics from that factory that taught me how to fix a lot of the machines. And we met the 2 ladies that make all the samples at Cone Mills, and they taught us some of the traditional construction methods and how to sew the zippers in and how to do very simple things that were very difficult for us in the beginning.
But all of that came after some wayward travels. Victor spent some time in Europe. I guess we both did. And he found a pair of pants that he really liked the fit of. And now you can get really awesome tailored pants pretty much anywhere, but not 8 years ago. And so they were they fit more like trousers, but they were jeans. And he wore them out, and when it was time they were falling apart and no longer cool in public. Instead of trying to, we're broken and we're DIY kind of, and instead of trying to find another pair, he decided that he would take them apart and figure out how they were constructed and make a new pair. And so that began this whole thing. So this started as a personal project in our living room. I was actually in school at the time studying pattern making, but like everything except for pants. But it started to kind of combine forces, and it was really just like, can we make a pair of pants? Yes, we can. Can we make them better? Yes, we can. Can we make them fit better? Yes, we can. Can we make them fit more people than just Victor? Hey, Brad, let's make some pants for you. Like, hey, Tom, let's make some pants for you. And can we sell them? Oh, someone bought some pants. And so really just kind of learning as we went in a very small sort of little sphere. And part of that learning.
And we had no experience. Like, we did not work for other retail companies or manufacturing companies, or like we hadn't worked for another brand. Like, I was coaching a soccer team and Sarah was in school. So we had no reference point.
All you need is brains.
Or all you need is like persistence from failure.
Would you have started? Would you know? If you'd known what all would go into it, would you have ever undertaken it?
I honestly, so if someone had told me the things, like verbally said, these are the things, these are the defeats you will suffer and these are the victories you will experience, no. But if someone could sort of infuse me with the feeling of the defeats versus the victories and the average, yes. So
Well said.
Yeah, very.
Great answer.
What are the defeats that you experienced, and what are the...
you have to narrow that question down. Yeah. No, I'm not kidding.
We're talking about hourly defeats, daily defeats, monthly.
Just pick one and share. If you were
Very first one. We live in North Carolina, and we learned about your factory, or about your mill, Cone Mills, White Oak in Greensboro, 1 hour away. Could we please pay you cash money for some denim? No reply. No reply, no reply, no reply. They sell denim to big companies, and Victor called the salesperson multiple times, left messages, called every other number we could possibly find.
Not multiple, 100 times.
Went above, somehow got Superior's information, called the sales rep in New York, got that sales rep to somehow come through. We placed an order for a bolt of denim, which would last us, one bolt would last us
This is
years.
200 yards.
At the rate we were
fabric,
going
yeah.
at that time, that was a big investment for us. And then drove our Nissan Altima to the 18-wheeler truck loading dock at Cone. It took them 20 minutes to figure out how to open the freaking gate for a car. They were like, no one has ever done this like that.
They've been around since 1905.
Yeah. And now we order 12,000, 8,000 yards at a time. So we're growing, but defeat number one.
And we just purchased the material.
What it was they were really focused on selling to companies like Guess or companies that are ordering 50,000 yards at a time, and we were like, can we have 200 yards? And
By
the
the way,
sales
that's
rep,
all of our savings.
he would never write us back, and we would never I emailed him every day and I called him every day for 3 months, and finally I went over his head and I was like, I'm trying to buy fabric from your company, we're starting a company, your sales rep won't sell it to me. A dude ended up getting fired over it.
Wow.
It's true.
Really? Well, I mean, not, okay, let's finish.
I don't know if it was over that, but the dude wasn't there 6 months later.
You should have sold the fabric.
Did you start from the beginning of wanting to make them yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know if you ever tried any cut, trim, and make or anything like that from other sources.
No, so I think the idea, or a lot of the idea from the beginning was that was coming from winemaking, and that the winemakers are manufacturing, and they're manufacturing a small quantity every year, focused on quality, and that what they're doing inherently makes what they're doing compelling and interesting and different because no one else is making it the exact same way. So their neighbor's growing the exact same grape, 300 yards away, but the wine tastes completely different, and that's a really interesting thing. And
You
that
can't
it's
find any small manufacturers really that'll do limited production in the
Right.
United States is pretty hard.
right.
Maybe
Yeah, to find anybody that's going to do
Yeah.
less than 1,000 pieces at a
Right.
time. Yeah,
So-
and then also that.
Did you lose that?
I did.
Okay, but so the other thing, being totally honest, that was one thing, sort of the ideal, our idealist approach was wanting it to be like of the region, but the other was that honestly, when we started, we did not anticipate that anyone outside of the city or the state would ever know about us or ever purchase a pair of jeans. Like, we expected to be a small scale operation for a while, and then as things progressed, opportunities present themselves. You take advantage of some of them, and so at some point we did actually attempt to outsource some stuff. And
Well, if you already felt like you had a market for certain things, would you approach it the same way? I mean,
I don't
because
know.
maybe you know
it's
that
tricky.
you can sell 200 pair.
Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
know anything. We didn't know we
Yeah.
could sell one.
So did you outsource?
So would
No,
Well, no, so I just said we did. So later,
we tried.
many years later, when we started doing like super stretch women's denim, which is very, very different than raw off the bolt men's denim, we thought we didn't have enough knowledge or the manpower to have a second set of machines, different settings. And we worked with a factory in California, and they did a run for us, and it was really difficult, so we took it back in-house.
So you guys have
defeat.
this wonderful, endearing humility and it's charming, in fact. You know, it starts with a net worth of negative $11,000, and, you know, making your first pair of jeans and figuring out how to put a zipper into it. Can you maintain that when a venture capitalist offers you $50 million for your company? How do you
50 million? Are you offering? Because we can like go out back right now.
This man's in.
Yeah, do you want to revise that number?
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
It's a good
like
question.
if somebody wanted to give us $50 million, we could start something else tomorrow and continue on with the
With the same amount of
same
humility and charm.
with more in our bank account.
What do you do to like you know, I mean, you're bringing something that means that it almost has to be done locally. You can't do it except out of your own maker space, right? How do you keep that when you become really successful?
That, I don't think that that's entirely true. We took the production that I referenced, like in California, we took that back in-house earlier because we were unhappy with the quality. But our customer base, our clients, our friends, our vendors, they didn't have any problem with that. Our main message is that our main values are that it be high quality. We believe that people should buy less and buy more, buy less and buy better. And that it be manufactured in the States. So we work with a shirting factory in North Carolina to make our button-ups.
Those are these shirts, right?
And they have an amazing and impeccable needle, and they make for Brooks Brothers and Tom Brown, and so that it's in our interest to have them make our shirts rather than us spend who knows how much time figuring learning that curve. So, and people are like, yeah, absolutely, I'll buy your design from that manufacturer with those details, no problem. So it doesn't have to be all in-house. We do have a sort of a scalability, or we used to have a scalability challenge. Like we signed every single pair of jeans.
Sarah and I signed every single pair of
Wow.
jeans because we made every single pair of jeans, and then we got to this point where it was like, would we ever not sign them? Because it was our design and our craft, and we were making super limited quantities, and we were edition numbering every single pair, and it was just like super, super, super limited thing that was only sold at Barney's, New York. And it was like, how do we grow? Because it wasn't really sustainable at that size. It was like, how do we need to double. Like, at that point we were making 20 pairs a week or something like that. I mean, it's like
Simple, you have children.
nimble fingers, right? No, but so then, but it was a big kind of like culture question for us. It's like, what is the core of our brand? What do we believe in? Why are we doing this? Like, is this actually scalable to a place that makes sense? And we decided that we would share that with every single person in our manufacturing. Well, not every single person that's been with us long enough to master it in a way. So the people that have been with us for 2 or 3 years that are as good or better than we are, we want them to be as invested in every single stitch as we were. Like, I rebuilt every single machine. We were sewing every single pair of jeans. Like, this was our thing. But to share that with somebody else was like a big step for us. It was really scary. But I think it's the smartest thing we've ever done, and it created this like pride throughout our entire like company, like from the person that's doing all the cutting to the person that's sewing the back pockets to the person that's like, it's not. I think that's one of the things that we wanted to show, and maybe we should run through the slides quickly, but our factory is wide open. Like, you walk in the front door, we have a store, and you look left, and the factory is wide open. It's 6,000 square feet. You can see everything. Like, not the idea, but like, authenticity and like transparency are two of the most important things to us. Like, we do what we say we do. It's not a marketing story. It's not some like ad campaign. Like, this is real. This is what we do every single day.
It is cool that those things are important to us, and we've learned, we didn't know how this would go over, but we've learned over the years that that is really, really, those things are important to people, like to our clients. Like Barney's, their first order they bought for Madison Avenue and Beverly Hills, they bought 114 pairs. It took us 4 months to produce them. And my father put in all of the rivets with a hand press, and our mothers ironed all of the outseams, and our friends helped us pack them.
And we only had 4 machines at that time.
Wow.
And we didn't have a cutting table, and we were in this like, just really, like we had moved out of our apartment at that point into a really shitty warehouse with no heat and no windows. And we were in the back of like a 20,000 square foot space, and there was an indoor truck loading dock. Obviously no heat, no AC, but like Sarah and I picked up the bolts of fabric. They're this big around. They weigh 200 and some pounds, and we would walk them back and forth across the concrete floor, and we laid all the fabric out on the concrete floor, and I cut it all out on the concrete floor. And then the next season, they ordered for 6 stores, and we got a loan from.
Wait, but before you go down that, easy tiger. The thing I was gonna say is, so we were obviously over the moon. Like, Barney's ordered. That's our first real order. Whoa. And I don't know. That was one of the biggest partying nights we've ever had. It was like, we cannot sleep. But they sold out or they came really, really close to selling out. They reordered before the next season, before the next buy. We did not anticipate that. Now we can buy more, they don't make more jeans. And that was, we were selling $275 jeans, dark, like crunchy raw denim. We had 2 styles. They were the same denim, they had different stitching. Like, just, they were not different at all. Like,
Spring 2009, which was the worst retail quarter ever.
And we were like, why are, like, in the spring, dark denim, $300, everyone's in a crisis. Why are they selling? And they were saying it's because it's authentic. People, if they're going to invest in something, they want to invest in the thing. People worked hard to make this. You can identify where it's going. And we weren't sure how that would be received, especially in the fashion world. So that was really cool. Just what was important to us translated. And I think that's like, we fall back on that a lot. Like internal compass, like when in doubt, just what's important to us. And as long as we do what's important to us, then it's authentic, and you can sell authenticity because there's no selling.
And that happens like across so many levels. Like, I think that in 2007, that was the first things that we were seeing in the market that were doing that was coffee. We had a local coffee roaster, and then it was like the first local brewery in North Carolina, and now there's like 120 local breweries. But it's like, so it wasn't like a thing that was like just important to us. It's a thing that's like a cultural.
We were talking about breweries earlier.
Yeah, but we were following that model. Like in our very first business plan that we wrote, we were trying to define who our target customer was, and we said Whole Foods shoppers were our target market. Like people that were willing to spend 20% more for something that was 100% better and had a story. And that's what it was. And like, yeah, you spend $1.20 on an apple instead of $1 on an apple. Like over time, that does get to $200 to $250. $50 for a pair of jeans. Like it's the same concept, just in a different area.
Cool. So this, really quickly, this is, like right there is a window. And so that,
It's like a restaurant window into the kitchen. It's 1 foot tall, 4 feet long.
So this is our store in North Carolina. It's about 500 square feet. And you walk in through that yellow looking door, and then you can go left and look into the workshop where the machines are like right there. And then, or you can be in the store and you can see through that window. So you see people making things in real time. You see us running around. It's like all kind of open-ish. And that's something. We also have a store in New York, which I think is the next slide. You can go ahead. This is on Elizabeth Street, just south of Prince. And it is about 800 or 900 square feet. No manufacturing. We cut all of our jeans to one length, and then we hem them per customer. So there's a hemming machine, which is that guy, in the New York store. And we didn't use that on a regular basis when we first opened, or not in real time, not in front of the customers. And people really felt like something was lacking. Like they want to see it happening because that is part of, for our brand at least. And people will come in, and I don't think they're planning to be investment. I don't think they're planning to make an investment in anything, but they're just so moved by the process that they wind up being clients.
That's
so it's
awesome.
kind of cool.
I want to go back to the business plan. Talk about the business plan. You know, that whole experience of rewriting it about, how many times? Let's talk about the business side of this, because I think that you guys utilize some resources that were kind of key for the overall success. So talk about that a little bit.
So in 2007 when we were starting the business, or when we were starting to make jeans, we were just making things. It was not our intention to start a business. It was not our intention to start a denim business. It seemed like just an absolutely ridiculous proposition to even consider that. So we didn't for a long time. We just made a pair of jeans a day, every day, for 6 months, just because we liked it. And then after 6 months, a few people were starting to buy them. We were like, wow, this might be a viable thing. So we started building out a business plan, and there are some resources in North Carolina that you may have here too, that were free to us. One was a group called SCORE, S-C-O-R-E. It's an acronym, I don't know what it stands for. But
Society of Retired
Something retired executives.
Yeah. It was a bunch of really successful people that play golf 4 days a week and go into this space once a week and talk to young entrepreneurs that want to start businesses. But they gave us a template for a business plan that was 35 pages long, and
You did it though, right?
Well, we took that template and we spent 2 weeks and we wrote it all out, and it was probably 20 pages long at that point. Went back and met with them again. They tore it to shreds and said, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this. Worked on it again for 2 full weeks, and again, probably 8 times. I met with them 8 times before they said, okay, now this is good enough to take to a bank. And then when we took it to our bank, the local community bank, Coastal Federal Credit Union, they said, okay, we were asking for a $10,000 loan. They said, we need $10,000 to make some jeans in our apartment. And they gave it to us with a net worth of negative $10,000. But it was an SBA back loan, so the SBA covered 70% of the loan. So the bank wasn't making a huge, it wasn't a huge risk to the bank. To us. We used the $10,000. We paid it all back down. And then we got the order from Barney's. And we asked for $30,000, and they said, okay, you paid us back the 10, we'll give you 30. We used all 30. We shipped the order to Barney's, they paid us. We paid down the 30 to 0. The next season we had a few more stores, we got a $50,000 loan from them. It was a seasonal thing, and we built this relationship with them. And that $10,000 loan grew to a $500,000 loan over the course of, 5 or 6 years or something like that. Based on orders, based on us taking the money, using it, paying it down. And it was a seasonal thing where one season we would use X dollars, we'd pay it down. Next season we need twice that much. But it was all based on our purchase orders.
And our relationship.
And our relationship.
And we also met regularly with the SBTDC,
Mhm.
so the Small Business Technical Development Center. And that's a really, I think you guys have a similar resource, yeah?
We have something called Business Ownership Initiative. We're part of the chamber, BOI for short, that do similar things, I think.
So that was a huge resource. We were talking about this a little bit at lunch. We met with our guy, David, there, about once a month, every year, for the past 7
7
years.
years,
Yeah, and he's moved on, so we don't meet with him anymore, but,
they're funding that guy.
yeah, that too.
So is it like business counseling,
Yeah.
Kind of.
business therapy?
It was
Yeah.
business therapy,
Business
yeah.
therapy, because small business is tough, and a lot of things you run into are, nothing's necessarily wrong, it's just that's being a small business. And so it was an opportunity to talk to someone about whatever was on our mind, hiring practices, like what best practice for anything, like what do we do in this situation? This happened, it really sucked. And Victor said earlier that he actually rarely had answers, but he almost always knew who to connect us to. So, after a meeting, it'd be like, hey, Victor and so-and-so, I think you guys should have a conversation about this, done. And so that was a wonderful resource, like a great outlet, and then it often yielded information. But even when it didn't, it was really great support. I think those are probably the biggest influences.
How'd you get into Barney's?
There's a guy in Durham who makes shoes by hand, and he saw a little something about us on the news, in a 6-second clip in the morning news, and he reached out to Victor and said, hey, he's got to make things, we should get together, and they hit it off. And then he sent his uncle information about our brand, and his uncle had worked for Diesel and a couple other places. He was currently at Double RLL.
So he
He was
didn't
in
run a
between.
trade show or anything, it was just something.
No, he was the
Serendipity.
Serendipity. And so anyway, he knew one of the buyers at Barney's, and he was like, "You've got a great product, and your distribution sucks, and we'll help you with that." So he sent an intro email, and they followed up. And then we drove up.
Awesome.
That story is. We'll maybe wait for that story. It's funny.
Wanna wait?
Because there was a question.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, at that time when you got involved with Barney's, how many different fits did you have, or
One.
was
We had
that
one
just,
with different
was that just
Different stitching.
male, or was that for
We had
men and
male.
women, or?
Male.
We had just
only
men's
for many
jeans.
years, for like 2 or 3 years.
Right.
We had one fit, one with a curved front pocket, and one with a trouser front pocket.
And
That's
one
awesome.
with gray stitching, and one with gold stitching.
Beautiful. Great.
It was
Yeah.
really diverse. It was
Yeah.
a broad line of four pieces.
Oh my god, and he's like killed ourselves making the same. But I was talking to someone earlier, like they were asking how Barney's supposed to work with as a department store, like did they push us for stuff that was sort of done? And initially, Barney's did not really need cases. When we started working with them, they were still that awesome cultivating, like the seekers out there with things and the developers of pictures. Now that they're more out to but they were wonderful, and so we went to that meeting. We were so proud. We were like, we have 4 different styles. We were like, dear friends.
We had never been to a buying meeting or selling meeting before.
Yeah.
We had no clue what we were doing.
They were like, let me tell you a little something about merchandising. Like, to the untrained eye, this looks like the exact same like all 4 pairs look exactly the same to a person, in a big sea of options. So anyway, we learned as we went with that. They were very patient with us.
But you want to talk about biggest first failure? You were asking. Originally, we were making jeans under a name. I think this is Sarah V.S. Versus, right? And so I was emailing Barney's under Victor at Raleigh. Victor at versusjeans.com, and all of our samples, and like we had a website, versusjeans.com, and Barney's was like, okay, we'll see you
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we'll see you next Tuesday. It was like 6
You're like,
days away or something.
Can you meet next Tuesday at 4 p.m. or 2 p.m.? We were like, sure!
And the next day, we got a letter from Versace, a cease and desist letter, saying, we have a brand called Versus, you can't use it anymore. So we had 5 days to come up with a new name, remake all the samples, make new labels, make a new website, make new business cards, make a new whatever. So needless to say, we didn't sleep for very long.
We had an intern who had started with us a week earlier. She quit her paying job to come intern with us for free, which we're still friends with her, and bless her heart. So she had no idea what she was getting into. We didn't either. But it was just the three of us, and we
We
like,
bought some pizzas and some beer.
Oh my God.
And we invited all of our friends.
Well, we sat around the ping pong table and we brainstormed names, and we were, all of us had a computer out on the trademark site. Anyway, long story. But wound up with Raleigh because we didn't think anyone knew where Raleigh was. We thought it was graphically interesting.
And it was so generic. It was like Raleigh Plumbing Company.
Yeah.
Denim, same
Raleigh
thing.
really kind of likes that. But then we coded screens and burned new logos. We screen printed labels. We made new samples. We designed, made line drawings.
We broke into the design school and used a laser cutter. All of our business cards and tags. Not broken,
is strong. I was still technically sort of affiliated.
We went from 2 to 6 in the morning and used the laser cutter and did not leave a trace.
Also really good friends with everyone in design school still.
Yeah, the
We're
door
friends with
was
Shane, it's all cool.
Right.
But yeah, just pulled it out. But we had to call a friend who interned at another company and ask her to share a line sheet with us because we weren't exactly sure what a line sheet should be.
We've never seen a line sheet before.
Should it be photos? Should it be line drawings? Do you give the price on everything? Do you give dimensions? What do you do?
And then we didn't have enough money to get it to New York either.
There was that.
So I called my dad to ask for money for the first time
Ever.
since I had ever moved out of the house. And I was like, Dad, we have this appointment. This is the most important thing that's ever happened. I need to get to New York. And he was like, oh, well, your 19-year-old cousin from Ukraine who doesn't speak any English is in town. I bet he'd love to see you.
No shit. That is real.
He said, I'll give you $300 and let you borrow my minivan if you take Artyom with you. So
After 5 days of being excited and panicky and strung out
and not slept.
and no sleeping, we pile our unpaid brand new intern, ourselves, and Artyom, who speaks no English, into his father's minivan. And we leave at 2 in the morning, so we miss the traffic and we make it in time.
Well, and because we needed that amount of time to
We were finishing before we got in the car, yeah. We were on the subway tying, and this is the part I don't recommend, tying hang tags onto the gym. We were, we had our special thread and we were twisting it so that it would make a nice little ribbon. And I'm charading to Artyom, I'm like, and we're zigzag across the subway making the ties that we're putting the hang tags on the way to the meeting.
Insane.
But you don't say no to that. This is one of the things. Now opportunities present themselves and we can kind of okay, now we have a little bit more knowledge and we have some criteria. And so do we take this opportunity and what will it require? But at that point it was we are young. This is a phone call I imagine not many people get. We will do what it takes to see where it goes. So yes, we were insane. But that was, we were we're just gonna go pulse the wall and just try it and then we'll know. But we don't do that we don't do everything that way all the time.
Just most things.
Did you consider your cousin your good luck charm then?
Yes.
It's a very special place in our hearts. He walked with us to, to the outside of the building, and we gave him one of our cell phones, and he had a watch, and we were Empire State Building that way, downtown that way, meet back here in 2 hours, okay? And we're bye!
So talk about scaling, because obviously, so you experienced this early success, obviously it came with a lot of hard work and a little bit of serendipity, which a lot of times that's how it happens. But then you get to a point where you're getting all these orders and you're not keeping up, and then for a lot of businesses here, the challenge is that you just can't get over the hump. There's not enough money to hire somebody. In order to have more money to hire somebody, you gotta make more stuff and sell more stuff. How did you guys, is it because you had that relationship with the bank that you were able to do that, or how did you deal with that?
It changes every season. I mean, I feel like every 6 months, it's a new business proposition for us because the business grows, because things change, because there's different there are different things involved. I mean, for a while, for a couple years, it worked really well with our bank, but then we became the biggest outstanding loan that they had, and they were like, "You're
Too big.
outgrowing us,"
Yeah.
and they're like, "You need to find some other space," and we had to deal with some weird financing options for a year or two, and then we found the right financing option. And scaling is terrifying because if you don't produce on time, people won't order. If you produce a product that's inferior, people won't reorder. If you don't, like at some point in time, if you don't grow, you can't exist. I mean, there are just so many demands that are like so time sensitive and so much pressure. It's terrifying and it's exhilarating though. I mean, it's equally those two things.
Since we started so incredibly small, at first scaling was simply financial. Like, as long as we could find funding, then you could hire a couple more people, and it was like 4 people can do more than 2 people, obviously. But then when you get to a certain level, like now, hiring 2 more people doesn't have the same impact as it did. And so now, so we sort of, scalability will focus on different areas. Like sometimes it's everything stays the same and we rework production.
Okay.
Like how can we make production more efficient? So we're making more jeans with the same resources in the same time, or making higher quality, like less seconds, whatever the case may be. Or maybe production's as tight as it can possibly be. This is a style we can make with our eyes closed. It's our core. Like ordering isn't tricky. We've got trim out the laws. Everyone knows what's going on. Now we need to focus on how we distribute. Or so those things always shift. But I think it is always a juggling act, and that's one of the challenges that we took on when we decided to produce for ourselves. And we did that because I think we're control freaks. I think we were not comfortable both with other people's ability to execute our idea and our ability to convey the ideas like so impeccably clearly that we were absolutely going to get our product back. And given that scariness, we decided to just do it ourselves. But if we had a reliable partner, if we had some manufacturing in the area, if we had someone to help us like make clear tech packs and convey that information, if we had a little bit more of a base, a teamwork, I think you guys are onto something in that department. Scalability becomes a little bit less of an issue.
Hello.
So that would be a
Do you, talking about that, have you always had more demand than the supply, or you beginning to market some of those things yourselves now, or the market is always there, you just have to find out to beat that, or are things changing over time?
The market changes. So far, knock on wood, it's always there, but it does shift. Like, accounts fall out and new ones come in, and sometimes they from different things. And we do, we have inventory challenges just because every, when you're making a line, I think we have found that there's sort of 3 divisions. Like what sells, what humans will buy, what stores want to order, and what press wants to promote. And they very rarely overlap by more than 1 or 2 SKUs. So you wind up producing those things, and inevitably some of the editorial stuff or some of the seasonal stuff doesn't sell. So we, in those cases, there isn't enough demand for every single style all the time. But we make mostly to order. We overcut by 20%, but we don't start cutting until we get our orders in. So it isn't like we count on X number of, X amount of demand, and if it's not there, we're stuck with a bunch of jeans. We do count on X amount of demand for our cash flow. So, so inventory-wise, the demand is always there. Cash flow-wise, so far it has been, for the most part.
This is a super important thing that I brought up a couple of times today with a few different people that we met with. But I know that it's the makerspace is opening up, and I think it's one of the most exciting things I've heard about in a long time. And I think that what you guys have going on here and this group of people involved in Pattern, the city, in development. Like, you guys have an unbelievable opportunity to create something really great and really true to this place. I don't know what that is, but you've got a lot of resources that are super compelling. This part that Sarah's been talking about, though, is equally, if not more important than all of that. And I hope that all of the people in this room and many other people can help make happen is the entrepreneurship side of that, the cash flow planning, the inventory management, the accounting, the financing. Like, there are a lot of people that can make a really great garment or a great something, but how do you manage? Like, managing scaling on the business side is harder than on the design side or on the, like, I don't know. And I feel like of all the people that I've talked to so far, there are enough people in this room, and I'm sure in this community, that can help make that happen. But I think it will demand the community's support for any of it to succeed. We got into this business because we were passionate about making things, and we loved it. And loved it so much that we could go into a bunch of different areas and fail. And we were so stubborn and so persistent and so passionate about it that we would just keep going. And we would learn from the failure, and we would learn from the failure, we learn from the failure, we learn from the failure, we learn from the failure. It's like, how do you find an accountant? I don't know. Like, how do I figure out which machine does this kind of stitch? Like, that we could figure out, right? We could actually figure out the patterns, and we could figure out which denim we wanted to use and which stitching we wanted to use and how to design this really compelling product. And we did. We designed a badass jean. It's beautiful. But then all these other things, how do I find a lawyer that can help me set up my trademark or set up my business or set up an LLC or create a business plan that makes sense to a banker and that actually makes sense so that you can do this for a living. Those things are hard. Or those are not things that any one human can possibly do.
Don't scare anybody.
I'm being honest. I am being so honest, and I am being so real. That is a lot to ask of any one human. There are a lot of things, but the one thing that we've learned and that we've seen so many times is that if you're passionate about something and you go to somebody and say, I have no fucking clue how to do this, people jump in and they're like, hey, I do, or this person does, or hey, talk to this person. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But there's enough people in this room that know enough about all those things that it can happen. It's not going to happen by yourself. It's not going to happen on its own. It requires a whole bunch of people pushing the rock up the hill. But it can. All the pieces are here.
Talk about how you guys are in your community helping other makers and collaborating with other makers. How's that working out in Raleigh? How are you guys? You obviously have a creative community there. How does it work with all of you guys?
There was a question in the back. Can we?
Sure.
How do you handle returns, or do you get returns from vendors as well?
Let's talk about makers.
We'll get to that.
Everything we make is perfect.
You just killed the buzz, man.
No,
That's a good question.
in all seriousness, we can address that.
Barnes, and your question,
Should we do it now or later?
What?
Especially if they don't pay.
Yeah, that's a.
You can continue on.
Okay. Department stores, some of them have call for buybacks, and we, if they're a good department store, we'll work with them and do a trade if it's something that we think we can move. If they're a bad department store, we will not, and we make that clear at the beginning because you can department stores have reputations. You can know which ones are not great to work with.
Right.
Yeah. But it's still a battle, and it takes manpower and resources and all that stuff. Personal returns, we do our damnedest to make sure that the person on the other end is happy. So if it's our fault, we absolutely own it and we fix it. If it's not our fault, we do our best to
own it and fix it.
Yeah, essentially. But, yeah.
I think a huge component though.
Service is a big thing.
Yeah.
And experience. We've had like a bad roll of denim just sat in the warehouse for too long, and we don't have any way of knowing that until it splits, like on someone's pants, right? And that's a buzzkill. That's a deal breaker.
They're out on a date and they're walking down some stairs and it like rips here.
Yeah. And they send us a picture and they're like, hey,
Exactly.
really, yeah, exactly. Hey, really unhappy about this. Yeah. And we say, like, that is, like, that's on us. And we think that we've almost lost a customer, but 9 times out of 10, we can turn that into a lifelong customer by the way we handle it. So we focus mostly on experience and like a positive result, kind of whatever it takes.
So how do you keep your store stocked, like the direct to consumer and then the wholesale accounts? Like I mean, I'm kind of like you. I think I have this great product, but I can't get it out there, and I don't know how. Like we're trying to do wholesale, and it's like we want to wait for an order so that we don't have any inventory because you know who wants that?
You have a website?
Yeah. And,
do you sell much on the website?
Well, I don't sell direct to consumer.
So just website presence.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But no sales on the website.
No, like I tried that, but then I was like, what am I going to do if I get an order from one person? Like, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
And then, like, cause.
And are you talking like quantities you can count on your hands or more?
Oh no, I'm still tiny. Like I like stored things in like 2 places, and I don't even make them. I'm Bulgarian, so I make them there. And so that's a whole. But anyway, the point is, it's like direct to consumer or wholesale, and it's like.
So we went right down the middle and do a little bit of both because we make a better margin on our direct to consumer, and it gives us a better pulse, like a better read on the pulse, and it gives us a point of contact, like a way to reinforce what our brand is and what we're about without having to pay for marketing or advertising or.
Sorry, don't you have to like have inventory to keep the store stocked?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
like
you
if it
do.
doesn't sell, what happens?
Yeah, so that was something that we didn't start with retail. When people started coming out to this weird unmarked space where we were just in the back kind of like playing around, and we don't know how they found us, and they'd be like, we heard you make pants, can we buy some jeans? And that happens enough times, we're like, well, this is, maybe I could sell something. So that's when we decided to do retail, and at that point we had, like, when we were cutting orders, we would cut a couple extra.
We started out cutting 5% extra, and we put that 5% like on a shelf in the warehouse, and people would come buy it.
And there's no simple solution to the question that you're asking, like as far as I know. This is one of those points where I think it's a leap of faith, and then whatever happens is you respond with creative thinking. So if you overcut by too much, like first of all, be careful about what you overcut with. So like don't do your editorial styles, like a core product, a thing that is timeless, a thing that if you have it in 6 months, it's not going to look outdated. That's a good place to start for inventory. And then if you do that and you have, if you've got an order for 10 units and you make 15 and you're stuck with 5, like analyze, does that break the bank? If it does, do 12 and see if you can move 2. And then in the moving of 2, what do you learn? How did you do that? Did you do it on the website? Did you post up on Facebook? Like, hey, BFFs, got 2 bags, and do they love them? Like, so it's a little bit of, it's really just doing it. And keeping tabs on it and not doing it so big that it hurts you if it doesn't go as planned.
And I think what you're talking about, creative solutions, like I think one of the most important bits or the important revelations that I had was that designing a business was as important as designing a product, and they were very similar thought processes. Like if you really get into it, like design is problem solving, and you're like, I want to design the best pair of jeans ever, and what does that entail? This kind of stitching, this kind of fit, this kind of construction, this kind of blah 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 blah. But then it's like similar questions are like, how do we fund this thing? And if you dig into it, or we have this much inventory, or we don't, like, it's problem solving, and it is design. Like running a business is a design problem. I think that a lot of times people say, oh, designers can't run a business. And oftentimes that's true, but oftentimes they're the exact same questions that you would ask about this thing that you're designing and making, if you ask that same question in response to this problem that you're having in running a business, it's a similar thought process, I think, possible.
I zoned out to the end of that because I just had a thought.
Yes.
I think I can circle back around and maybe answer. We have a lot of extra inventory of stuff that that we've like had in sample sales that hasn't moved, and it's just inventory. And when bands come through town, some of them we're friends with, and so we always invite them over to the shop. And some of them we're not friends with, and Victor would just email them and be like, "Hey, we listen to your music while we're making things. Come see what we make. You can have some jeans." And we'll get tickets to the show. And they come and they see the factory, and we pull from all of that extra inventory, and then you post about it, and then it's social media, which is great. And so then the cost of that comes all back around, which is how we feed off of other makers in Raleigh. Because there's this really, when we were first starting, there's this awesome underground of like badass cooks and great musicians and filmmakers and artists, and we would...
Because Raleigh, very similar to here, has an incredibly affordable standard of living where like people could work at a coffee shop for 3 or 4 days a week and make enough money to pay their rent and focus on the thing that they love to do. And that is the most exciting part of Raleigh, and I think of here too, is that like there are really creative people that have talent that have an opportunity to do it. Like,
and the overlap.
Right.
That situation that you're talking about provides. Like, you walk into a restaurant and you're like, "Oh yeah, that is our friend the bartender, and he's a painter." And like, that is Ivan, and we listen to his music while we're sewing, and look, he's wearing our pants. And
or the jazz musician at the bookstore.
Yes.
The girl running the cash register. He's a great jazz musician, right?
I'm the jazz musician.
Yeah.
I can see that this is a love story with the denim and you. So could you speak to the dynamics? Because if it was any other two people, it might not work. In other words, like when you think of Yves Saint Laurent, Pierre Berger, finance and design parties, like the whole package.
And if it was any other medium, it might not work because we tried some other things.
That was it's been a crazy and beautiful development for us. I think we were both incredibly passionate, incredibly stubborn, and incredibly naive when we started.
I would put naive first, then passionate.
Okay, well, whatever.
No, I'm just saying.
Stubborn face.
It's a journey.
And it was very quickly we got to a point, like we got to the tipping point. We got to the point where we didn't know how many stitches per inch should be in a pair of jeans. We didn't even know that we should be measuring for stitches per inch. We didn't know if this was the right machine or the right seam because we had no experience, zero. Like we were just looking at other things that we knew were high quality or whatever and trying to mimic that. And the gray area was like, there was this much gray area. It's like, and we would get into these drop dead, like, no, dead, like, just.
How many forceful dead words we put together?
But I mean,
Big fights.
on top of no sleep, on top of no money, on top of like tons of pressure, of deadlines, and we got to the point where it was like, we're either gonna do this or we're never gonna talk to each other again.
Said it was a love story.
It's a romantic story. It's turned into one at least.
Well, we had a couple sort of moments, but then we sort of had like
we had a come to Jesus moment. We were like,
and it was not pretty.
It was like,
but it was what we landed on was like, you would not be fighting tooth and nail for this if you didn't really honestly believe that that was best. I would not be fighting tooth and nail for this if I did not really honestly know in my heart of hearts that I am right.
Your story was much more compelling.
But it came down to like trust. It came down to like, I know that she's not bringing this up this passionately and this hard, like unless it was really important. And we were 100%, we were both 100% in on the thing, and it was like,
But before that, we were 100% in technically, but we would still wonder, like, wow, what are we doing? Because we didn't know. But that was when we decided that, like, we are obviously 100% in, because we are, like,
It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
How
We're
beautiful
screaming at
is
each other.
that? How many people know that their partner is like 110% with them in, even if you don't agree on the topic at hand? And so that was kind of like a new beginning.
And then, the other point of that, like, new beginning was that, like, we came to terms with not knowing most of it. Like, we came to terms with, like, we only know 10% of what we're doing, and that we are totally going to mess some stuff up, and it's going to cost us a lot of money, and it's going to cost us a lot of time, but we believe 150% that we're both doing our best, and that we could bring up the things, like, that she's compelled to bring up the things that I'm not doing correctly because I want to be better. And then I'm compelled to bring up the things that she's not doing to her best because she wants to be better. And it's not like a personal attack. It's like, oh, you're not doing this thing right, or you're not doing this thing the best that you can do it. It's like, hey, we both know that we can do this thing better. We need to be doing this thing better. Here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. And we both agree and we move on and step up, like, together.
And this is where having a community where a bunch of people, or people with a bunch of different strengths, could just, like, take a chunk, like a 4-year chunk out, like a 4-year chunk of learning and pain. And because what we eventually got to is, like, we are okay with not knowing, and we trust each other, and we understand our process, and we've got to come up with a better way to solve these problems. And so that is, like, go find the person that has the answer. And if you've got people who you can just bypass that and just ask, is so, I don't know, it'd be really, really amazing to have tried that.
That's great. So we're over an hour now. Sorry, long by. No, I think everybody's been pretty enjoying this a whole lot. So to close it out, I guess, if you could, looking back, think of 2 or 3 things that were the most important to where you are now, other than each other and having this team, which I think is obviously the core, but what would those be?
I would say have a diverse group of mentors, like all levels, emotional, design, like inspirational, business, and logistics, and then utilize them wisely. So be really respectful. They should be top notch. They should be super busy. They should be so awesome. They almost don't have time for you, but you are so awesome. They make time for you, and be respectful of that when you interact with them. So you just really, you get a lot out of it. Like, have targeted questions, get some information, impress them by using it wisely, and coming back with the next round because you've, like, progressed.
Keeping them informed too.
And I think that balance is really important. We get lots of requests for things, and the only ones that we really respond to are when the person is so targeted. We know they're not screwing around, and then that's really rewarding, and we're happy to help. And that was a lifesaver for us. I've got a personal board of directors, a group of women that I can call at 4 in the morning from wherever and say whatever, and they're there. And so we have that, like, friendship side. We've got it business wise, design. We've got a few people, like, in New York that help us out when we're up against the wall that we just don't quite know. And that would be start cultivating that now, because that's the kind of time, like, the kind of thing that should either last a lifetime or take a lifetime to develop. It's always, you never know.
That's good. That's one thing. You got another one?
I'll let Victor.
But that's huge. Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. Okay. I think that it's connecting with people of all ages and experiences, and kind of recognizing the things that they're best at, and recognizing people that want to help other people. It's finding the right mentors. It's an active, full-time job. It's like everyone here and everyone in your community and everyone outside of your community can and will be able to help you if you let them, or if you create the environment that makes it easy for them. We
And
have,
if you earn it.
right, of course, and you earn it, yeah. But like, the people that you want helping you and the people that you want on your side are way too busy to help you out. And so you want to ask them like only the times that you know that they can help you, and you want to ask them only the thing that'll take them 2 lines in an email to write back in 1 minute, in 2 minutes. But oftentimes, like, some of the most important things that have ever happened to us have been a 2-line email from one person saying, hey, Victor reached out, I'd like for you to talk, or would you take 5 minutes to talk to him? That's it.
Really?
Tommy.
Yeah.
Like-
Just think of Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a sales rep. Amazing. Went into a different, did some new products. He was supposed to hit a certain number. Came in a fifth of that number. We didn't realize he was in that position. He didn't tell us even though we were checking until 3 days before market. Nothing you can do about that. Huge impact on the business that year. What do we do about this relationship? Pring. Dear Tommy, we are freaking out. Should we be really freaked out? How do we handle this?
This
Like,
guy, Tommy,
one of our mentors.
Tommy Fazio, was one of our mentors. He was the head of Bergdorf Goodman for a while, head of Nordstrom for a while, and now runs a bunch of trade shows. I mean,
He
this
just
dude's
writes
like,
back like 2 comforting sentences and an intro to someone who can help out. It's like, that's it. It's awesome.
and it changed like the direction of our company and our lives. Like 2 sentences from one person.
The other thing I think is like, do it. Just fucking do it. Someone asked earlier about demand, and we've talked a little bit about inventory and stuff like that. And in today's world, we can have anybody who has an idea or a drive can have such a small percentage of the market and do really, really well because you can send orders anywhere in the world.
The long tail.
Yeah. So it is a big, tough game, but you really only have to like duke out a little corner to do really, really well. So if you have something to contribute, if you have something you're passionate about, like just do it and pay attention and you will inevitably learn. And as long as you've got the energy to respond, then you're good to go and you've got everything you need.
Should you think about doing 1 or 2 things as opposed to
Yes.
Well, for us, yes.
Yes.
So
At first.
for us, we wanted to. I mean, Sarah was designing like fabrics, and then she was like hand screen printing 20 yards of fabric. Every single yard was different. She would take the 20 yards and make 1 dress out of it. And it was one of the beautiful things in my life. And I was interested in making sport coats and suits and this and that and blah, 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 and like full collections. And we realized early on that coming from nowhere, North Carolina, that we had to focus on something. And that if we could be, the dream was like, if we could be the best at one thing, and if we could like build a brand and a name that meant the best in anything. It didn't matter what the thing was. It could be soap or, it didn't matter. Like for us, it was denim. We were like, if we can focus on denim alone and make the best pair of jeans on the face of the earth, when we want to make a shirt, somebody will buy it from us because they'll believe that we're going to make the best shirt. And if we want to make a tape,
It also streamlines things. When you're learning process using setting up systems, then you're doing it for like 1 variable instead of 15. And then once you get it for that 1 variable, it's easier to extrapolate. But we did a collaboration with furniture. When we use a furniture company, we designed a table. We're about to launch. We designed some upholstery for them. We get royalties on all of it. They're launching at ICFF in May. It's like really fun and cool, and we get to think outside the box. And if like Raleigh Denim wanted to make some upholstery, the logistics of that and how do you market it and do like, bleh. If you just do marketing really well, then you can like attach a lot to that brand.
Victor, you were mentioning the cease and desist order earlier. When you're designing your jeans, what do you do as far as research to make sure you don't accidentally come up with something that would be similar to somebody else, or can just a simple change of color of thread make it unique? What do you do?
That's really interesting. The fashion industry is one area where those kinds of things fall more under copywriting or something like that. The fashion industry doesn't have any of that, which is why it evolves so quickly and why you can buy a knockoff Chanel bag, or you can, like H&M can have a knit sweater just like Missoni showed. Like, so it's really just the branding. It's just the names and trademark, and that's searchable on a database. We have a notch in our back pocket, and a brand called Rogan had a back pocket that was sort of similar way back in the day. They stopped doing it before we did ours, and we didn't know about it, or we didn't know about that detail. And people were like, "Hey, you have Rogan's back pocket." It's actually very different, but still but there's no like recourse there. It's just either you're informed or you're not, and if you're not and you feel like you should be, then you have to do more research.
So does your trademark then protect your designs?
Nope. We have a red chain stitch on our. We highlight a lot of the. Can you just flip through the slides really quickly? We highlight a lot of our
this one right here.
So this is a chain stitch on the hem, and then we also use the red on the waistband, and we screen print bones on the pockets, and we sign them all, and the higher end stuff we limited, like hand stamp the edition numbers, and this is we sew this cone label into all of the denim that comes from cone and means it's authentic. So we have these, that's all on the inside. We call them Easter eggs. And about 2 seasons after we started, Old Navy had a red chain stitch on their hems, and they were like touting that, and we were like, damn it. We can't do. We wanted to protect it early because it's like our thing. There's nothing to beat up. But that's what keeps the fashion industry so progressive. So I'm 120 million% in favor of original ideas, and I don't believe that knocking things off is the way to go. But I do think that there's some benefit in not getting caught up in it. If that's what we're leaning on, we got to come up with something better.
Exactly. It's that just pushes us forward too. I mean, there was a store that opened locally. Very similar store fixtures and very, very many similar things, and we were like, we kind of got mad about it for a little bit, and then we were like, you know what, let's just make our store black. We're like, let's do something new. It's time for us to push forward, and it was exciting. It was a good catalyst for us, and I mean, I think that's kind of how it goes. It's like we don't want to lean on one detail or one thing or whatever. Like, our value is in all the things that we're doing every season and pushing forward. So it's.
Was there a boost after the CBS Sunday Morning article?
I think so. I don't know. We should look back. We got a little slack about tracking.
Not slack. I mean, there's just so much to do that it's hard to track it all.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of you before.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
That's awesome. We are all press is good press, pretty much. Yeah.
Since you guys started making your denim for yourselves and then for friends, and then when you started, like, someone wants to buy, and then talking about going to Barney's and getting the Barney, how did you figure out your pricing? How did you figure out the hours that you worked on it? How did you figure out?
No, we did what you're talking about. No, it's true. We're both right. But I'm just saying that does not mean we should guess. That's what I'm saying. We did that. But we knew that because we were learning, we were less efficient than we would be, or should be. And so we did that calculation, and it was and so we brought it down, and it was still really expensive. So we lost money for a little while well, maybe didn't lose money, but we didn't make as much of a margin.
We didn't make any margin.
Right.
So, can I jump in? Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, so we sort of averaged it. We looked at the market and what was on the market, and the characteristics of what was on the market and how much was on the market for, what it cost us in terms of material and labor and time and development, and met somewhere in the middle, because what we were doing wasn't on the market at the time, and it was much more personal and artisanal, and we set the price there, and it turned out to be a really good guess.
Okay. Pricing models are interesting. Sarah was talking about 2 different viewpoints. I just want to go over it again because I don't think it was perfectly clear, but one is a cost build, right? It cost me X amount for fabric and X amount for trim. I'm going to guess X amount for labor, X multiple to get to my wholesale price, X multiple to get to the retail price. So that a build is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is a market evaluation. Like, what's there? Who are the other brands? Who are the other competitors? What are they doing? What fabrics are they using? How are they constructing it? Where are they constructing it? What does it look like? Like, what does that pricing look like? Comparing that to what you do and saying, is what I'm doing better or worse?
Or more valuable or less.
More valuable or whatever. And then saying, okay, if they're selling this for $225, but we're doing all this extra, we should be selling at $275. Whether or not, even if our build ends up being lower or higher or whatever, like, there's some things that the market will bear, and there's some things that the market will not. And there's some things that make sense from a build side, and there's some things that don't. And you really have to like cross both of those. And you have to find a place that that makes sense for what it costs you to make it, and that people will buy. And it's a negotiation, between those two.
And that's for one product. So when you have a line, there's also a little bit of wiggle room in there. So the thing that you know you're going to sell volume of, you can make a little bit smaller margin on, and a little bit bigger margin on. So then you can make a little bit less margin on the stuff that's more testy or more editorial, and you hope that it averages out. But you have to keep a really tight eye on all of it.
And so sorry, 1 second. I'm sorry. I have one more thing to add to that. We'll come right back to you. The other thing that we did is that we only had 4 or 5 sewing machines in the beginning. And to run a proper denim factory, you need 40 sewing machines that are all set up for exactly the right thing. And so we made guesses. And in the beginning, it took us, when Sarah and I were making them, we made 114 pairs. It took us 500 hours or something to make those jeans. It was 5 hours per pair at whatever, let's say we're going to pay ourselves $10 an hour plus taxes is $12 an hour, $60 per pair. Or whatever it was.
That's a calculation you really don't want to do.
Exactly.
It will stop your business.
Right, exactly.
And so the third component of that in the beginning was what does it cost us to pay our bills? And we said, okay, right now with what we've got, we could pay our bills if we set it at this price. And what we were doing was more personal and higher quality than was out there. And we said, okay, this price, we can pay our bills. It seems like it'll make sense in the market. Let's go with it. And let's hope that over time we'll buy the 10 more machines, we'll get faster, we'll understand, we'll do higher quantities, and we'll take that 5 hours of time and reduce it down to a lot less. And then we'll build our margin over time in our manufacturing.
Which you will.
Right.
I think we have to wrap up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
We had one more question. I did say we'd come back.
One last question.
Since you said that, how many machines do you have now, and what is your line like? How diverse is it?
We have 60 machines now in the factory. 35 on the women's and 35 on the men's. Maybe 50 on the men's. We've broadened it out, so we do a lot of shirting now. We do knits in our factory now.
Heavy.
Like sweater knits.
Jean jackets.
But it's all kind of grows out of what we were already doing.
How many employees?
24 total.
Wow.
Do you still sew?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not as much as I want to.
Designing a little bit more, maybe twice as big.
Okay, guys, I gotta cut it off. These guys are gonna be around for just a little bit to answer some other quick questions, but we really appreciate you guys being here. Hope that this was educational, that I know that there's probably a million more questions each one of you could ask, and a lot more that these fine people could share, but this is the end of the road, so please stick around, have a few more drinks and mingle and chat with them if you get a chance, and thanks again for being here, and let's give these guys a round of applause.